Good evening, Julian McBain here, and this is my 11th vlog episode. As usual, I am in Entropia Universe, and we're just going to be hunting some drones while I go through the things I want to talk about today. And in fact, today I'm going to turn my vlog into a motivational video, or at least an attempt at one. Because I watch a lot of YouTube when I'm on breaks at work or before I work, and sometimes after work if I'm not occupied with being a father or kitchen detail or anything like that. And the majority of the videos that I watch, I try to make meaningful. I want to make sure there's a reason I'm watching them and not just watching EU videos put out by other street tubers. I'm not just watching video gameplay, although I do love watching video gameplay. I'm currently watching Horizon Zero Dawn again by Christopher Odd, or his playthrough of it, I should say. But I like to enrich my life a little bit every day. And so I ran across a video recently that kind of talked a lot about success, and it kind of got me onto the mode of thinking as it often does. And I apologize if I'm clearing my throat a lot, but I seem to have acquired a hitch in my throat or something. It's been like this all day. And I got thinking about it, and as I usually do when I'm at work, I have a separate notepad for me to jot ideas down and notes down as I think about them, just so that I can get them out of my head and deal with them later. And of course, I left that whole sheet of notes at work, but I managed to reproduce the majority of it, so I'm just going to kind of run through the thoughts that I had today. Because realistically, how we think about things, what do we define as success? And I was thinking about that because and I'm going to get into a little bit of story time here in a bit later, but and why this kind of came about. But I was thinking about, how do we define success? What does success mean to us as people, or as a society? And I think that one of the things that everyone seems to assume is that success for everyone means making $1 million, and I don't buy into that necessarily. And although, of course, chasing the dollar is fine, and if you want to become wealthy and you have an avenue to do so, of which, technically speaking, everyone has a method to do so if they really want to put the effort into it, although it's not easy. And it takes a lot of strategic thinking. You have to make very few, if not zero, mistakes. And I mean that. You can do it. But you have to make very few, if not zero, mistakes. Even if you're only doing it on $30,000 or $40,000 in salary a year. I'm not joking about this. And I know for a lot of people, they're not even making that much, and that makes it even more difficult. And I'm not here to argue the semantics of wealth or anything like that, but if that's what you view as success, go reach for it, because it is possible. And it can take work, and you're going to set your setbacks, but I started to think about it, and what do I consider success? Because in the last 5 years, no, let's push it out to the last 10. In the last 10, my life has drastically changed several times. And through it all, I never really thought about what I defined as what I would see as success. I was just living for the paycheck. In a lot of ways, I still am. I mean, sometimes that's just how you have to live. Because we all still need to eat. We all need to keep a roof over our heads. We have to feed our children if we have them. I do. Medications and insurance and doctor's bills and things of that all comes up. But at the same time, what would that's not what I wanted to do. What would I view as success? And I was thinking about it, and it may seem cliche, but I think my biggest goal has always been to be financially independent. And I'm still quite away from that. And by financially independent, I mean I don't have to worry about missing a couple paychecks. That doesn't mean being out of work forever. That doesn't mean, living strictly on passive income or something like that. But having enough of a reserve to where I'm not on my credit card because I break a leg. Or because I lose my job, which has, or I have to relocate and therefore need to find work, and it takes several months. Because that has happened to me in the last 3 years. Moved 2,000 miles. And it took me 4 months to find work. And when I did find work, it was at half... no, it was a little over half the salary I had been making previously. And so, of course, that required a serious change in how I thought of things. But I was thinking about that and, financial independence in the way that, I don't have to necessarily worry about if that happens again over a short period. I'm okay. I would not expect to have enough in reserve to where I could live like that forever or anything like that. I don't have the personality for that anyway. But then I really thought of it, and largely I don't mind, I don't mind what I do for work. It has its days. Every job has its days. But when it comes to success, I guess the things that I want to make sure of is, keep the roof over the head and the food on the table and the electricity going. Little ped flowing into my EU account every month. And making videos that everyone enjoys. So I guess this comes to the question, maybe that's my dream, and I'm not entirely sure of that. I'm still evolving with it. But when we come up with those things, we got to think about what we really want out of life. You know what I'm saying? And I was thinking, well, how do you do it? These are things I've learned off of, public speakers and psychologists and salespeople. These are the people who taught me. I'm going to go through some of the names of them. I'm sure you're familiar with some of them already. And I'm going to go through a couple basics that basically came from all of them. The first one, of course, is set goals. And I'm not saying make a New Year's resolution, because everyone breaks a New Year's resolution. That's pretty much what they're there for. I know people who make the same resolution every year and then break it just so they have a resolution to have the next year. It's kind of like giving stuff up for Lent if you're Catholic. I'm not, but it's a good example to make. Set goals. Make them achievable. Because if the goal's too big, then what's the point? Or if it's going to take too long to achieve it, maybe you shouldn't make that the first goal. You can keep that as the... I hate to use the term dream, because a goal is simply a dream with a timeline. But maybe have that be the overarching finish line, but then set goals that can be achieved more quickly. For instance, this year I set 9 goals for myself for the year. 9 very specific goals that are in fact achievable. Things like earning my black scarf in fencing. I did that back in January. Which is the black scarf is an accolade, not an accolade, that's the wrong term for it. It's an achievement in fencing of a very specific school of fencing called Black Tiger. Other things included reducing my drinking down to a very specific amount. Producing 7 days of content a week. Or I should say releasing a video a day every week on YouTube. And life happened. I had to stop for a couple weeks. It's going to be coming back here pretty quick. I've got games to finish. I'm working on it. These are all goals that can be achieved. Getting up at a consistent hour. Yeah, I'm still working on that. Vacation kind of screwed that one up. Getting sick also screwed that one up. But along with making them achievable, make them meaningful. Because if they're not meaningful, what's the point? What's the point of getting up at 5:30 every morning, even when I have the day off? Well, that way I have a consistent sleep schedule. You know, there's a lot of science behind sleep and having consistent times that you wake up. With a consistent sleep schedule, you can make better use of your day. And I have noticed, I've always been, when I was younger, I was a lark. And what that is someone who wakes up early in the morning. We call them early birds. As an adult, I've more trended toward an owl or a night owl. Except, by the way, someone who wakes up kind of more in the middle is called a hummingbird, if anyone cares. The problem is I've noticed if I get up and live my life like a lark, I tend to be more motivated. I have more time, or I feel like I have more time with which to use in my day. I don't feel like I'm rushed. And so I'm going back, and this is going to start, in fact, today is Saturday, or today in my time is Friday. This will be released tomorrow on Saturday. I'm sure I will be up at 5:30 before the day this video releases. Or at 6. No. And then other things that I've done, and these were like last year's goals. Last year's goal was to make sure I make my bed every day. And that was a suggestion from Admiral William McRaven. He has a fantastic commencement speech on YouTube. Go look it up. No, seriously. Pause this video and go look it up. Tell you what, I'll even link it in the description. That's how important it is. Just the act of making my bed every morning changed a lot in how I motivated myself. And now I feel completely off kilter if my bed isn't made in the morning. And I know it sounds small and it sounds stupid. And maybe it is. But these little things help. Because it was a piece of incremental I still can't speak, but that's okay. Small goals, achievable, right? It was a small bit of incremental progress that I made toward changing my life for the better, not allowing myself to wallow in the things that had to change. Okay, so how do you do that? How do you prevent yourself from wallowing in things that you don't like and becoming depressed and maybe even going to the point where you don't care anymore? Well, you have to find ways to stay motivated. And if you're not a Marine, because those guys are the kings and queens of motivation. No, seriously, they are seriously awesome at motivation. Then you have to find other ways to be motivated. Watch a YouTube video that motivates you. There's a lot of good ones out there. Ray Liotta has a tequila commercial for 1800 that's incredibly, ironically, extremely motivating. You know, Admiral McRaven's video about making your bed. Motivational videos by Jordan Peterson. And, hell, a lot of the marketing advertisements that you see for, you know, start your own marketing firm or watch my class, those tend to be extremely motivational because by motivating people, a salesperson motivates you to buy their product. Think about that for a second. A lot of sales videos are deliberately motivational because it'll motivate you to buy their product. Oh, cool, global. I haven't had one of these in like a month. Just over 40 pet. Cool. So, you know, watch sales videos or commercials that are motivational, even if they're goofy. Goofy's fine. Motivation is hokey. And that's a quote. Jeffrey Gitomer, in his little yellow book of Yes Attitude, says that motivation is hokey. And I encourage you actually to buy that book. It's not expensive. You can find it online. Just look up Jeffrey Gitomer. He's actually a salesperson who teaches salespeople how to be salespeople. And he taught me, by reading his books, I became, I won't say a great salesperson, but I became a functional salesperson. And keep in mind, for those of you who have ever taken the MBTI, I kind of fluctuate between an INTP, an INTJ, and an INTP. The jury is still kind of out on that. It kind of flips back and forth every time I take the test. But, so, you know, severely introverted. And and if it means that you have to watch a motivational video every day, every morning, just so you can get out of bed, do it. And I'm hoping you're not in that type of a space, but if you are, then maybe it'll help you make that step. Take that step and move that one increment closer to whatever goals you have, because you're going to fail. It's just part of the deal. Jordan Peterson says, you're going to fail. And you might fail a lot. Maybe you'll only succeed. I'm trying to paraphrase here. He mentioned 70% or 50%. But I'd say the hell with that. Even if you fail 90% of the time, you're still going to succeed 10. And 10 is better than nothing. Embrace your failure. And by that, I don't mean wallow in it. I mean learn from it. Right? Because you don't learn from success, at least not more than once. Every time I'm on the field fencing, I learn more when I get hit than when I hit my opponent. Every time. I learn more from every no than I ever did from a yes when I work in sales, or when I worked in sales. Don't allow your failures to define you. Let them teach you. And setbacks are going to happen. Major setbacks may happen. Things that could set you back 10 years. In fact, I'm facing one right now, and I'm not going to get into the details of it, but let me tell you, it's what sparked this whole thing. I got word that 10 years worth of hard effort and work that sparked not one but 2 cross-country moves might have just been wiped out, and I got to start again. And I got to tell you that a couple days ago I was feeling pretty low, and if it weren't for my lady there to remind me of these things, I might be still feeling like crap. Don't be afraid to accept offered help, even if that help is only motivational, because sometimes we need it. Humans are social beings. We used to live in tribes and herds and packs. However you want to say it, depending on what evolutionary period in our lives you want to call it from. Chimpanzees, I think they're called troops. I think that's rather accurate. We're social beings. We want to help each other out. So when someone offers a hand, don't be afraid to accept it. That doesn't mean don't try to make your best effort on your own. And there are some people like, and I'm one of them, that hate asking for help. But sometimes you can't do it on your own. Don't think that's necessarily a negative thing against you. Sometimes it's just the way it is. Which isn't to say you don't do your best. Just don't think that you're always alone. So I guess what it comes down to is, you find a path. You find something you want to do. Make sure it's meaningful. That's something that Jordan Peterson says a lot. Do what's meaningful. Find something meaningful to do with your life. And what does that mean? Well, it's going to mean something different for all of us, right? And so you take the time. You think about it. If you're the type that brainstorm. If you're not, write. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what it sounds like. Write, because writing is the pathway to expressing your thoughts, and that's why I do it. And I've written all sorts of stupid shit over my days. I've written out whole different, wacky economic systems that would never work in real life. I came up with half a dozen ideas for micronations, because there was a period of time, well, I can't say I've stopped enjoying the idea of micronations, but I don't really do a lot with it like I did about 5 years ago. I used to think the idea of forming micronations was awesome. One, because obviously it's, you know, it's kind of a game, and of course being in the SCA, it's almost operationally the same. But it's also how I discovered that in the modern world, in America, keep in mind, America is a representative republic. You know, we practice a certain amount of democracy here, a large amount of democracy here. Feudalism is still legal to a certain extent, and I'm not talking, you know, serfs and slaves and no. I'm talking about the original manor system that eventually turned into all that. But, you know, people can freely associate with each other and one be made the leader. And the leader offers certain benefits like access and use of land in exchange for labor and protection. I mean, that's basically how our economy in a lot of ways works. Although we do it now in the form of cash, which is why it's capitalism, instead of in the form of labor itself, which is feudal or other methods. I'm not going to get into all the details of that because I don't have the brain power right now to deal with the nuance. But you can see where the evolution of different styles came from that. And so, like, if I wanted to form a trust and I owned 1,000 acres and I wanted to, you know, go to my friends and say, if you work these 10 acres, all I want off of you is, you know, off of person A is a dozen eggs. That works. And it's legal. Sorry, that was a tangent. Find a path. Find a path. Find something meaningful to do with your life. But that means something to you, and that's the importance of it. Does it mean something to you? Does it mean something to your life partner if you have one? Does it mean something to your children if you have them? Is it possible? And how do you make it possible? And then you work hard toward it. You form those goals. And then you work toward those goals and you achieve those goals. And remember, you want to make the goals achievable to begin with. You don't want to set your sights too high to start, because, you know, you can't. When you plan out a long journey, like if you're going to walk the Appalachian Trail, or in Vermont we have the Long Trail, which is actually, I think, the northernmost portion of the Appalachian Trail. You don't hit the Long Trail expecting, with the goal only being, I'm going to make it to the end. You have a goal with how far are you going to walk today? Where do you plan to be tomorrow? How far up the trail do you want to be next week? And walking the Long Trail is no joke. I mean, for a lot of people, it's a month-long journey. Like, people take sabbaticals to walk this trail. But people do it. And you can do the same thing with whatever you want to do. And you know what? If that means you want to spend your life playing video games and making YouTube videos, go for it. If that's what's meaningful to you, if that's what's meaningful to your life and your family, go for it. You know, I would not be able to do this if I didn't have the full support of my fiance and my son. I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't be able to spend the time. But I do. And that means I'm fortunate that I found something that I enjoy doing. Oh, that's a Tryptodon. Okay. And it's meaningful to me, and it's meaningful to them that I'm able to do it. And everyone has that. We just have to find it. And if you become my competition, great. Because in the YouTube space, competition doesn't quite mean the same as it might out in the regular retail world. Hell, I watch YouTubers that are far better than me all the time. You know, you already know most of my favorites: Serial Overdrive, Lore Spade, Christopher Odd, Jordan Peterson. I watch a little Sam Harris. I like watching David Rubin. Um, you know, if you're my competition, fine. Maybe I'll end up watching your stuff. Maybe I'll become one of your fans. That's all I really have to say. If you've made it through here this far, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. Make sure you check out my website, mcbainmanor.com. Link is down in the description. I do plan on releasing more content over time. I'm expecting to release Ghosts of the Past. It's technically, part of it's already technically online, although the menus are giving me a little trouble. I'm still figuring out this web design thing. And I love WordPress's interface, but it's not necessarily, for someone who is used to having to deal with front page and HTML5 only. Yes, I'm old. It's a bit of a learning curve, so I'm getting there. So thank you all so much for everything. You all have a wonderful night.